Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something fundamental, maybe the most fundamental thing shaping your life. It's not your background, not how much money you have, not even luck, really. It's your choices, the decisions you make every single day. Okay, let's really unpack that. The idea here is that decisions, these often invisible moments, they're like the architects of your destiny. They've this incredible power, more power than money or timing or anything else external, If you really look closely at your life right now, where you are, it's not just a random sequence of events. It's actually, it's a collection of all the choices you've made. Some were tiny, made in a second. Others, maybe they still echo. They might haunt you, or maybe they lifted you up years later.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating and what our sources really hammer home is how we usually get choosing wrong. Most people think of decisions as like purely logical steps, cold, hard calculations, like you're balancing a spreadsheet, trying to maximize something.
Right, like it's just math.
Exactly, but the truth is, decisions are much deeper than that. They're almost like emotional codes. Every single choice, whether you speak up in that meeting or stay quiet, whether you take the risk or play it safe, it reflects everything inside you. Your beliefs, your fears, what you value most, how much courage you can summon in that moment, it's all packed in there.
That's a really key distinction because, look, we all get dealt a hand, right? Circumstances, where you were born, your family, the economy, those things are kind of givens. But your decisions, those are yours. You choose those, always.
That's where your power lies, real sovereignty.
The second you truly grasp that you're the one authoring these choices, everything shifts. You stop being just a passenger. You become the driver, consciously steering your future.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really practical. We want to give you, the listener, some solid framework, some deep psychological insights. We want to take decision-making out of that zone of just stress and anxiety.
Yeah, that feeling of being overwhelmed by options.
Right. And move it into the realm of strategy, intentional strategy. By the time we're done here, the goal is for you to understand this process so well that you feel equipped to make maybe just one single, truly intentional choice. The kind that can genuinely redirect your entire path, not just reacting, but choosing consciously.
Okay, so to kick off this strategic exploration, we have to start with something foundational. It's the concept that basically validates every single tiny choice we make. It's the butterfly effect. We're zooming out from the big life decisions for a second, down to the physics of your daily habits.
Absolutely. It comes from chaos theory, right? This idea that a really small, almost insignificant action, like the flap of a butterfly's wings, can set off this huge compounding chain reaction, leading to something massive, like a tornado, miles away, weeks later.
It's such a powerful metaphor.
It really is. It teaches us that the size of the input doesn't always match the size of the output, especially over time. Things compound in nonlinear ways.
And when you bring that down to just everyday life, wow, the implications are kind of staggering because we all do it, right? We dismiss the small stuff, those tiny decisions. It doesn't matter. Oh, did you spend 10 minutes wrestling with that difficult chapter in a book? Or did you just scroll again?
Or did you make that awkward phone call you were dreading? Or did you rationalize putting it off? Just one more day.
Hitting snooze versus actually getting up when the alarm goes off seems so minor.
These are exactly the micro movements we're talking about, the ones we just brush off. But stack those tiny shifts up. Day after day, week after week, year after year, they become the actual foundation of where you end up, your destiny.
So the big message here is forget the dramatic overnight transformation. That's mostly a myth.
It really is. Real life change doesn't usually come from one giant leap. It's built brick by brick from these micro movements, these little acts of courage. Choosing the slightly harder thing, the thing aligned with where you want to go, repeated daily. Often nobody else even sees them. But the compound effect, it eventually becomes undeniable.
I think we focus on the giant leaps because those make for better stories. We see the tornado, the big success. We don't see the butterfly. Let's maybe look at a few examples of those almost invisible starting points.
Okay, perfect example. J.K. Rowling. Everyone knows the Harry Potter success story. Incredible. But the real destiny-shifting decision, it wasn't signing the book deal. It was way earlier. It was her deciding not to give up after I think it was the 12th publisher rejected her manuscript. Maybe 13th.
Imagine getting that many rejections. The despair.
Exactly. That single choice, probably made when she was exhausted and feeling hopeless. Just a tiny act of, I'm going to try one more time. That micro movement of courage, it multiplied into a global phenomenon. If she'd stopped at rejection 12, poof, the story's gone.
Wow. or Steve Jobs. That calligraphy class story is famous, but it fits perfectly here. The Apple revolution wasn't sealed with the iPhone launch. You could argue it was seeded much, much earlier. When he dropped out of college, he decided, kind of on a whim, to just sit in on a calligraphy class. Seemed totally pointless at the time.
Right, totally irrelevant. Fonts, design, who cared back then for computers?
But he said later those lessons on typography, on aesthetics, that became the core DNA for the Mac's user interface. What made it revolutionary?
Decades later, it was a tiny, almost accidental choice. A micro movement that literally shaped the future of technology.
It just shows the incredible leverage point decisions can be.
And then there's the high-stakes version, like Elon Musk. People laughed at his rocket idea, seriously ridiculed him, and that decision, after 3 consecutive, very public, very expensive launch failures, to risk literally the last of his personal money on a 4th try.
That's insane pressure.
It's the definition of choosing conviction over comfort, or even over immediate evidence. The data screamed, "Stop failure!" But he was betting on a vision, something far off, but something he believed was necessary. He chose alignment with that vision over fear.
Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial point about decision-making, especially because it causes so much anxiety for people. We're always chasing the perfect decision, but maybe that's the wrong goal.
It absolutely is the wrong goal. Perfection is an illusion here. What you should be striving for, according to our sources, are aligned decisions.
Aligned decisions. Okay, let's define that clearly.
An aligned decision is a choice that reflects the person you want to become. It matches your core values, your long-term vision for yourself. Even if it's uncomfortable right now, even if it involves short-term pain or difficulty, misaligned decisions, those are the ones driven purely by wanting immediate comfort, or trying to avoid conflict, or just fear.
So it's about direction, not perfection.
Precisely. When you consistently choose based on alignment, your choices start reinforcing each other. They build momentum. Those small choices, they compound. They build into storms. Whether those storms are built from persistence, like rowling, or built from giving in to fear, that's up to you.
So the goal isn't to avoid risk altogether. It's making sure the risks you do take are actually moving you towards your destination.
That's it exactly. Risk in service of your chosen future.
All right, let's shift gears now into the practical side. The architecture of being decisive. We've talked about the theory, the compounding effect. Now, what are the actual habits that make positive compounding possible? And the first one, oh boy, it's a tough one for many people. Mastering the word no.
It's incredibly hard, isn't it? The struggle with saying no is almost universal. And it's because it digs deep into our wiring. We fear rejection. We want people to like us. We absolutely dread missing out, that FOMO thing.
Right. We see no as being difficult or closing doors or maybe even aggressive sometimes.
That's the common perception, yeah.
Right.
But the sources we looked at offer a powerful reframe. Learning to say no effectively isn't about rejection at all. It's actually an act of profound clarity. It's the smarter yes.
The smarter yes. I like that. Explain that a bit more.
Okay, think about your time, your energy, your focus. These are finite resources. They don't magically renew infinitely. Every single time you say yes to something, a request, an invitation, a distraction, an obligation that isn't truly aligned with your main goals, your vision, you are, by default, saying a very firm no to something else.
You're saying no to your own priorities.
Exactly. You're saying no to your time, maybe no to your peace of mind, no to working on your dreams, no to deep focus. It's a trade-off, and often it's a really bad one.
So saying no isn't about being mean or unhelpful. It's more about self-respect, setting boundaries.
It is fundamentally an act of self-respect and strategic resource allocation. That's all it is. Think about it. Saying no to constant distractions means saying yes to focus, to deep work. Saying no to the easy, comfortable path often means saying yes to real growth, to learning something new.
And saying no to people or situations that drain you.
That's a massive yes to protecting your own energy, your emotional well-being, your creative peace. You have to say no to the merely good sometimes to make space for the truly great.
Okay, that's powerful. Habit number 2, the pause. Harnessing the power of the second thought. This feels countercultural, doesn't it? Everything screams faster. Now, instant response.
It absolutely does. We glorify speed, but often the smartest, most strategic move you can make is just to wait, to pause. This taps right into cognitive psychology. Our immediate reaction, that first thought, it's often primal. It's driven by gut instinct, raw emotion, old patterns. Think System 1 thinking, if you know Kahneman. Designed for survival, fight, flight, freeze, quick reaction.
A knee-jerk reaction.
Exactly. But the second thought, The one that emerges after you take a breath, after that initial emotional wave washes over you. That is where the wisdom usually lies. That's awareness speaking, not just raw reaction.
How many times have we all said, ugh, I wish I'd just waited 5 minutes before sending that email or making that snap decision? The pause could save careers, relationships, but our impulse is always to rush.
Learning to pause intentionally is like developing a superpower because it creates space. Viktor Frankl talked about this, right? Between the stimulus, what happens to you, and your response, there's a space. And in that space lies your power to choose your response, your freedom, your growth.
So training yourself to wait for that second thought
Means you shift from being controlled by external triggers to actually authoring your own actions. It's probably the core skill of self-mastery, really.
Okay, this flows perfectly into the next habit, which feels very immediate, very actionable. The 5-second window between fear and action.
Yes, the Mel Robbins concept. It's brilliant because it explains why we procrastinate or avoid things so clearly. So you get an impulse, an idea pops into your head, or you get a gut feeling. I should start that project. I should make that call. I should speak up. That impulse often comes from the prefrontal cortex, the thinking, planning part of your brain.
The part that knows what you should do.
Right, but here's the catch. Research suggests if you don't physically move on that impulse within about 5 seconds, your brain safety, patrol the amygdala, the emotional center jumps in. It floods you with, wait, hold on, what if?
What if you fail? What if it's awkward? What if people judge you?
Exactly. All the fear, all the doubt, and boom, the impulse, the idea, it just dies right there. Killed by your brain's built-in desire to keep you safe and comfortable in the familiar zone.
So that 5-second gap, it's like a tiny little doorway.
It's the doorway between staying stuck in fear and stepping towards, well, towards growth, towards action, maybe even towards greatness.
It's basically your brain trying to sabotage you, but for protective reasons.
Precisely. Fear-based self-sabotage. But the practical application is beautifully simple. You interrupt that fear loop with physical movement, counting backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a cognitive trick. It forces your brain to shift gears away from the worry loop and into action. You just take one small physical step. Stand up, open the document, dial the first digit, hit send.
And that tiny action starts to rewire things.
It does, because you teach your brain, see, I did the scary thing and I didn't die. It builds evidence against the fear.
And this leads to a huge psychological insight, one that trips up so many people. You can't wait to feel confident before you act.
Absolutely not. It's the other way around. Confidence is almost always the result of taking action, especially scary action. It's not the thing you need before you start. Decisive people aren't fearless. They just honor that 5-second window. They feel the fear, acknowledge it maybe, and move anyway. They understand courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving through it.
Okay, now I need to tackle the big enemy of action. The great adversary. Overthinking. Such a trap, isn't it? Because it feels so productive, like you're being thorough, intelligent, responsible.
Oh, completely. It's one of the sneakiest forms of self-sabotage. When you're stuck in analysis paralysis, you feel like you're doing important work. I'm weighing all the options. I'm gathering more data.
It's just need a little more information.
But psychologically, what's often really happening is your brain is just stalling. It's putting off the moment of commitment, the moment you actually have to take a risk. Because the brain craves comfort, it loves predictability, and staying in that I'm still deciding zone feels much safer than actually moving forward into the unknown.
But the problem is we're often chasing perfect information, aren't we? Which doesn't exist.
It's a total fantasy. Especially for any decision that actually matters, any high-stakes choice, there will always be unknowns, variables you can't control, outcomes you can't predict with certainty. So demanding 100% certainty before you act, it's usually just a very clever excuse to stay exactly where you are, to stay stuck.
Which leads us to that kind of mind-bending paradox. Indecision is a decision.
It absolutely is, a very definitive one. When you choose not to choose, you are actively choosing the current situation, the status quo. You're choosing to remain stuck. And that choice often comes with massive hidden costs.
We focus so much on the potential cost of making the wrong decision
that we completely ignore the guaranteed cost of not deciding, the opportunity cost.
Right. What growth are you missing out on? What connections aren't you making? What peace of mind are you sacrificing just by letting this thing hang over you?
If you delay launching your business idea for 6 months because you're still thinking, you haven't avoided risk. You've guaranteed the loss of 6 months of potential progress, learning, market feedback.
Plus, it's just exhausting. Mentally.
totally exhausting. That analysis paralysis keeps all these mental tabs open in your brain. It burns energy that could be going into actually doing something. The truth is, clarity rarely comes from just thinking more. Clarity almost always emerges from taking action. You make the best choice you can with the information you have, you start moving, and then the path becomes clearer. Things reveal themselves once you're in motion.
So chasing perfection just delays destiny.
It's a comfortable delay, but a delay nonetheless. At some point, you just have to move.
Let's make this real now. Let's look at a couple of examples, extreme examples maybe, of people making huge decisions when failure seemed almost certain. First up, Elon Musk and that fourth SpaceX launch.
Yeah, the context here is absolutely crucial to grasp the enormity of that choice. It wasn't just a bad patch. This was 2008. Global financial meltdown. Both his companies, Tesla and SpaceX, were basically bleeding money, dying.
And SpaceX had already failed 3 launches in a row, publicly, humiliatingly.
Costing hundreds of millions. The entire aerospace industry was basically saying, see? Told you so. This guy's a dreamer, a fool.
He was personally almost broke. People close to him were urging him, practically begging him, just focus on one thing, cut SpaceX loose, save Tesla maybe.
All the immediate evidence, all the rational data points screamed, shut it down.
And he didn't. He made this one absolute defining decision.
Yeah.
Based purely on, what? Conviction.
Pure conviction, yeah. He gathered the very last of his personal money, about $35 million, which was basically everything he had left and bet it all. Everything on one more launch attempt, the Falcon one. If that failed, SpaceX was completely finished. Dead. No recovery.
From a purely rational standpoint, that decision looks almost crazy. How do you ignore 3 massive data points, 3 failures telling you it won't work?
Because he wasn't filtering the decision through the lens of past failures or immediate financial risk. He was filtering it through his long-term vision. He genuinely believed, and still does, that making humanity multiplanetary is essential. That vision was so powerful, so deeply held, that it made the short-term pain, the potential financial ruin, almost irrelevant in his calculation.
It wasn't about minimizing immediate loss. It was about maximizing the chance, however small, of achieving the ultimate goal.
Exactly. The sheer force of will required for that decision. It's staggering. It wasn't luck that the fourth launch succeeded. It was the decision to try again when everything said stop. And that one success, it didn't just save SpaceX, it basically rewrote the future of the commercial space industry.
An incredible example of betting on vision over fear. Okay, let's shift to another icon, Steve Jobs. His decision to return to Apple. That's a different kind of high-stakes choice, more personal maybe.
It's totally different context, but yeah, equally high stakes for the company and huge psychological stakes for him. Remember, when he came back in '97, Apple was reportedly just 90 days away from going bankrupt. It was a complete mess, chaos.
And this was the company that had fired him, publicly humiliated him years before.
Right. The easy emotional choice would have been stay away, maybe even enjoy watching it crumble, a little bit of revenge perhaps, or just avoid reopening old wounds.
But he didn't. He chose to go back. Driven by purpose, a sense of responsibility.
Seems like it was purpose over retribution. He went back to save the thing he'd helped create. And that meant making some incredibly tough, radical decisions almost immediately.
The most famous being the product line call, right?
Oh, yeah. Apple was making everything back then. Dozens of different Macs, printers, weird peripherals, none of it selling well. Total confusion. Jobs came in, took one look, and just slashed it all. Ruthlessly, from dozens and dozens of products down to just 4.
4 products, 2 desktops, 2 portables, pro and consumer. That's it.
Talk about saying no. That was saying no to probably 90% of what the company was currently doing. An immediate, brutal act of clarity and focus.
And that focus allowed them to pour everything into design, simplicity, user experience, which led directly to the iMac, then the iPod, iPhone, the whole ecosystem.
It was a masterclass in radical focus, all stemming from that initial difficult decision to return and then to cut away everything non-essential. He refused to let Apple's past mistakes define its future.
So both stories, Musk and Jobs, they show us every massive turnaround, every world-changing story, it starts with one single, often terrifying, uncompromising decision. made when the outcome was anything but certain.
Okay, so we've seen the power of these choices in action. Now, let's get practical again. Let's move from the stories to the actual tools, the frameworks that successful decision makers use to cut through the noise and complexity. But first, maybe let's just quickly touch on those invisible mechanics again. What's really going on under the hood when we choose?
Right, you said decisions are emotion wrapped in logic.
Exactly. And the sources suggest every choice gets filtered through at least 3 silent forces inside us. First, there's emotion. Just that raw feeling, does this path feel good right now, or does it feel uncomfortable, scary? Second is identity. Who do you believe you are? Or, maybe more importantly, who are you trying to become? Does this choice align with that future self? And third is prediction. What's your gut feeling or your conscious forecast about what's likely to happen if you choose this path? Success, failure, pain, reward. Okay. I can easily see how those could pull in different directions. Like, my identity wants to be a writer, which means discipline, facing rejection, right? But my emotion just wants the comfort of avoiding the blank page today. And my prediction might be whispering, you're probably going to fail anyway.
That's the internal conflict perfectly illustrated. And the art of intentional decision-making is learning to recognize that conflict. The best choice, the aligned choice, is often the one where your desired identity wins out over the immediate pull of emotion and the fear baked into your prediction.
Choosing who you want to become over how you feel right now.
That's often the essence of it. When identity and emotion are battling, you consciously choose the path that serves your highest self, your evolution.
Okay, with that in mind, let's look at the first big framework, the regret minimization framework. Jeff Bezos made this famous.
Right. He apparently used this exact framework when he was agonizing over leaving his very safe, very well-paid Wall Street job to start Amazon, which back then was just a crazy idea about selling books online. The risk must have seemed astronomical.
Huge. Failure was the most likely outcome, statistically. So the framework deliberately shifts the focus away from the immediate fear of failing and onto the near certainty of psychological pain much later in life.
He asked himself that simple question. When I'm 80 years old, looking back, will I regret not having tried this?
It's such a powerful reframe. Instantly, the timescale shifts. You're not thinking about next quarter's bonus or temporary stability. You're thinking about your entire life's narrative, your legacy.
Will the pain of failure, if it happens, sting more than the pain of never knowing?
Exactly. Because failure, even painful failure, tends to fade over time. You learn, you recover. But regret, the regret of inaction, of what if I had just tried, that echoes, that sticks with you. So the framework basically uses the certainty of future regret as a weapon against the uncertainty of present failure.
It flips the script from what's the risk if I do this to what's the risk if I don't do this, from what might I lose now to who might I never become if I play it safe.
That's the heart of it. It biases you towards action, towards trying the thing that aligns with a bigger vision, even if it's scary. A crucial tool for big, life-altering decisions.
Okay, second framework. This one tackles that comfort versus growth battle directly, the two-path rule.
Yeah, this is a really useful heuristic for those major forks in the road. A new job offer, a creative project, maybe even a big relationship decision or a move.
Right.
You can usually see 2 distinct paths emerge if you look closely. Path 1 is the safe path.
Predictable, comfortable, probably gets nods of approval from friends and family, lower perceived risk.
Right. And path 2 is the growth path. This one feels riskier, it's uncertain, it demands you learn new things, step outside your comfort zone, but it feels deeply aligned with who you want to be, with your evolution.
And the rule is?
Choose the path that will make the better story.
Okay, that sounds a bit cinematic.
It might sound that way, but it's not about vanity. Think about it. What makes a good story? Struggle, overcoming obstacles, learning, transformation. The better story path is almost always the one that forces you to confront challenges, to build resilience, to develop new skills, to become more than you are now.
Whereas the safe path
Yeah.
keeps you safe, but maybe keeps you the same.
Often, yes. Comfortable, maybe, but static. The path that generates the better story is the one that builds character. And character ultimately shapes destiny. So if you're debating between that secure corporate job that bores you and trying to launch that risky side hustle you're passionate about, ask yourself, 10 years from now, which path makes for a story you'd actually be proud or at least interested to tell?
That's a great filter. Okay, finally, let's bring it down to the daily grind. The 1% compound decision rule.
This one is all about fighting overwhelm and perfectionism. It's so simple but so powerful. The core idea is You don't need to make massive, earth-shattering, perfect decisions every single day. You just need to aim for slightly better choices, just 1% better, consistently.
And the math on this is just wild, isn't it?
It's exponential. If you improve anything, your decisions, your habits, your knowledge, by just 1% each day, by the end of 1 year, you're not 365% better. You're nearly 37 times better. 3,700% improvement.
That's hard to even wrap your head around, especially when the 1% feels so insignificant day to day.
Exactly. Choosing water instead of soda, reading one single paragraph of a challenging article instead of none, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, meditating for 2 minutes instead of 0.
These feel like rounding errors. They don't feel like they matter.
And that's the psychological trap. The immediate payoff of that 1% improvement is invisible. Our brains crave immediate reward, so it's hard to justify the tiny bit of extra effort or discomfort for a benefit you won't see for weeks or months.
So it requires patience, faith in the process.
Radical patience, yes. And understanding how compounding works. Small, seemingly insignificant decisions, repeated consistently, compound into habits. Those habits compound over time to build your character. And your character, ultimately, compounds to create your destiny. The power is all in the consistency, not the size of the individual choice.
Okay, so if we want to make these aligned 1% better decisions consistently, we have to get real about the things working against us, inside our own heads. The silent saboteurs, psychological biases, they hijack our clarity without us even realizing it.
That's right. And the truly effective decision makers, they don't pretend they're immune. They know biases exist. They try to understand their own patterns, and they actively build strategies to counteract them.
So let's dive into a few of the most common ones. What should we be watching out for?
Okay, let's hit 4 big ones, along with some practical countermoves. First, confirmation bias. This is huge. It's our brain's natural tendency to look for, notice, and favor information that confirms what we already believe or suspect.
So we basically search for evidence that proves us right, and we conveniently ignore or downplay anything that suggests we might be wrong.
You got it. It makes us feel smart and consistent, but it can make us incredibly blind to reality, especially when reality is changing. Think about investing or political views or even just judging someone's character.
That sounds dangerous in any situation where objectivity matters.
Extremely. So the counter strategy has to be deliberate effort. You have to force yourself to seek out opposing viewpoints. Ask, what evidence would actually disprove my current belief? Actively look for it. Spend time with people or sources that challenge you respectfully. Growth almost always hides in reasoned disagreement, not just echo chambers.
Okay, number 2.
Status quo bias. This is the brain's deep-seated preference for keeping things the way they are. Familiarity feels safe, change feels risky, and requires effort. So even if the current situation isn't great, even if it's clearly suboptimal or even harmful, our bias is to just stick with it because it's known. We rationalize staying put.
Better the devil you know.
That's the bias talking. It delays necessary changes, necessary evolution, just because inertia feels comfortable.
So how do you fight that inertia? Seems really strong.
You need a powerful thought experiment. Ask yourself this question, brutally honestly. If I were starting completely fresh today, right now, with no history, no baggage, would I choose this situation, this job, this relationship, this commitment?
Oof. That forces you to evaluate it based on its current merits, not just because you're already in it.
Exactly. It strips away the comfort of familiarity and the weight of past investment, which brings us neatly to number 3.
The sunk cost fallacy.
Yes. This is that emotional trap where we keep pouring resources, time, money, energy, love into something that clearly isn't working simply because we've already invested so much.
Like staying in a bad investment because you don't want to realize the loss, or finishing a terrible movie because you're already an hour in.
Or staying in a dead-end job for years because you've put in your time, or sticking with a failing project long past its expiration date. It feels psychologically painful to admit that past effort or money was wasted.
So you throw good money after bad or good time after bad.
Precisely. The counter here is tough but necessary. You have to accept that the past investment is gone. It's sunk. You don't fix a past mistake by repeating it or prolonging it. You fix it by learning the lesson and cutting your losses now. Today's decision needs to be based on future potential, not past expenditure. Is this the right path going forward? If not, stop, regardless of what you spent yesterday.
Okay, one more bias.
Let's do the halo effect. This is where we let our overall impression of a person, often based on one positive trait, like attractiveness, charisma, or success in one specific area, influence our judgment of their other traits or abilities.
So we assume a successful actor must also have great business sense.
Mm.
Or a brilliant scientist must be a good leader.
Or we trust financial advice from a celebrity athlete. We let the halo from one area spill over and create an unjustified assumption of competence in others.
How do you counter that? Be more skeptical.
Be more specific. Rigorously compartmentalize. Separate the person's charm or their known expertise in area A from their likely competence in area B, where you need the advice or judgment. Ask, what is the actual evidence of their competence in this specific domain? Don't let charisma or unrelated success cloud your assessment.
Okay, so these biases are constantly working in the background, pushing us towards default decisions, which links to habits, right?
Absolutely. Most of our daily decisions aren't really conscious choices at all. They're habits running on autopilot. They follow that classic habit loop. Cue knocks routine, nush reward.
Like cue feeling stressed, routine opening social media, reward temporary dopamine hit, distraction.
Or cue boredom. Routine grabbing a sugary snack. Reward brief energy spike. These loops write invisible scripts that dictate a huge amount of our behavior, including our decision patterns.
So if you want to change your default decisions, you have to rewrite the scripts.
You have to intervene in the loop. The most effective ways are often changing the cue, the trigger, or changing the routine. Change your environment. If your phone on the nightstand is the cue for a mindless scrolling routine, put a book there instead. Change the cue, disrupt the routine.
Or using that decisions journal you mentioned earlier.
Right. That inserts reflection, a new routine, between the impulse and the action, breaking the autopilot. It also creates a new reward, the feeling of self-awareness, of being in control.
Surrounding yourself with people who make growth-oriented decisions could also change your defaults, right? Social environment as a cue.
Hugely important. Normalizing better choices makes them easier to adopt.
So the big takeaway on biases and habits is awareness is key, that pause you talked about.
It's everything. Awareness is that crucial gap, the space between running on unconscious autopilot and consciously grabbing the steering wheel. That's where deliberate choice begins.
Okay, we have covered so much ground. From the physics of tiny choices to the psychology of regret and the traps of bias. Let's try to pull it all together now. Let's synthesize these powerful ideas into a practical, usable framework, something you can actually use starting today to make better choices. Your daily guide to mastering decision-making.
Okay, let's build it. This is a 5-step process you can apply to pretty much any decision, from small daily choices to major life crossroads. Step 1, pause. Always. Never just react on impulse, especially if there's emotion involved. Actively create that space Frankel talked about. Let the initial wave pass. Invite the second, wiser thought.
Just breathe. Don't hit send. Don't say yes immediately. Okay.
Step 2. Step 2. Project forward. Use Bezos's tool. Ask the regret minimization question. 10 years from now, looking back, what will I likely regret more trying this and potentially failing or not trying at all? Get that long-term perspective.
Shift from immediate fear to long-term legacy. Got it. Step 3.
Step 3. Choose the growth path. Identify the 2 paths, the safe one and the one that stretches you. Use the better story rule as a tiebreaker if needed. Consciously select the path that aligns with who you want to become, the one that expands your identity, even if it feels scarier right now.
Lean into the discomfort that leads to growth. Okay. Step 4.
Step 4. Start small. Don't get paralyzed trying to figure out the perfect, giant first step. Just take one small, 1% better action right now. Honor the 5-second rule. Move. Build momentum. Break the inertia.
Action generates clarity. Don't wait for perfect clarity to take action.
Right.
And finally, step 5.
Step 5. Reflect and learn. This is crucial for improvement. Afterwards, ideally in that decision journal, take a moment. Record the choice you made, why you made it, was it identity-driven, emotion prediction, and what the actual outcome was. This closes the loop. It helps you see your own patterns, spot your biases in action, and recalibrate your internal compass for next time. It turns every decision into a learning opportunity.
Pause, project forward, choose growth, start small, reflect and learn. That's a really solid framework. And if you actually start using that consistently, decision-making really does shift, doesn't it? It stops being this source of dread and anxiety.
And it becomes a skill, a strategy. Something you consciously deploy to shape your life. You start seeing how the small things connect to the big things. You see the patterns.
And you realize that the real power wasn't in the circumstances. It was in how you chose to respond. The moment you shifted from reacting to consciously deciding.
That's the core truth we've been circling around. Consciousness, awareness, brought to the act of choosing that transforms everything. It turns stress into strategy. And strategy is how you build the future you want. Hashtag tag outro. Okay, so listening to this deep dive is one thing. Actually putting it into practice is where the magic happens. So, to help you bridge that gap, here are 5 concrete exercises you can try starting today based on everything we've discussed.
Actionable steps. Love it.
Exercise 1, the 10-year reflection. For the next big decision you face this week, could be work, could be personal. Actually, sit down and write out your answer to regret minimization question. When I'm 80, looking back at this specific moment, what choice will I wish I had made? Put it on paper.
Make it tangible. Okay.
Exercise 2, the second thought practice. The next time you feel triggered, angry, frustrated, defensive, ready to fire off a quick response, force yourself to pause for a full 60 seconds. Seriously, time it. Write down your impulsive first thought, then take a breath and write down the second, more reflective thought. Commit to acting only on that second thought.
Train the pause muscle. Nice.
Exercise 3, the decision journal. Get a simple notebook. For just 3 significant decisions you make each week, jot down. 1, what was the choice? 2, what was the main driver? Fear, comfort, growth, identity. Be honest. And 3, check back in 2 weeks what was the actual outcome. This is how you spot your blind spots and learn from reality.
Confronting your own patterns. Powerful.
Exercise 4, the 2-path question. When you feel genuinely stuck between a safe option and a courageous but uncertain one, visualize both outcomes vividly. Then ask yourself aloud, which path expands me? Which one forces me to grow my competence, my resilience, my character, and then commit to that growth path, even if it's just by taking one tiny step towards it, especially if it feels scary.
Choose the better story actively.
And exercise 5, the 1% rule in action. End each day for the next week with this simple reflection. Did I make at least one choice today that was 1% better than my default? It could be tiny, resisting one distraction, reading one page, making one healthy food swap, starting one difficult conversation. Acknowledge the small win. Build that consistency.
Fantastic. And if you, the listener, want to go even deeper on mastering this whole decision-making mindset, we have a few reading recommendations that really stand out from the sources. For understanding just how irrational our thinking can be, Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow, is absolutely essential, foundational.
To turn those 1% choices into automatic habits, you can't beat James Clear's Atomic Habits. Super practical.
For figuring out what's actually worth caring about, what deserves your yes, Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck offers a really refreshing perspective.
Ray Dalio's Principles gives you incredibly robust frameworks for making complex, high-stakes decisions systematically, especially in work and life.
And Cal Newport's Deep Work is critical for developing the focus needed to execute on those important decisions, cutting through the modern noise.
And maybe 2 more for perspective. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which brilliantly connects financial decisions to deeper biases and behaviors, and The Courage to be Disliked, which explores choice, freedom, and interpersonal relationships through Adlerian psychology, really shifts your thinking.
Great list. We've journeyed through chaos theory, the power of no, the urgency of a 5-second window, and frameworks that can reshape your future. But if there's one final provocative thought we want to leave you with, it's this. You are always, right now, in this very moment, just one single conscious decision away from a completely different life. Seriously, think about that. One choice. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to wait until you feel perfectly confident or ready. All you truly need is courage. Just enough courage for 5 seconds, enough courage for one moment, enough courage to make one definitive choice aligned with the future you want to create.
Every great story, every turnaround, every success you admire, it started exactly where you might be right now, with someone feeling uncertain, maybe scared, but making a single decision to begin anyway.
So let today be a moment of decision for you. Decide. Decide to lean into growth. Decide to try that thing you've been putting off. Decide to evolve. Decide to become. Because ultimately, your destiny isn't written by luck or by chance. It's being authored moment by moment, choice by you, with clarity, with heart, and with courage until the next deep dive.